Ole Miss and Mississippi State get set to do battle on Black Friday in a game simply known as the Egg Bowl. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Rebels and the Bulldogs. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole Thompson. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com. Use promo code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. One of the most underrated rivalries in the SEC takes center stage on Friday afternoon as Ole Miss and Mississippi State get set to do battle in Oxford, Mississippi. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. I am Chris Phillips, and helping me do so, my good friend Cole Thompson joins me once again. Cole, what's going on? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down this Egg Bowl rivalry game matchup with you.
Look, let's just talk about it. It's still a game. You want to win it. You do. You want to have bragging rights in the Magnolia State. You want to be able to say that we're better than you in every sense of the word. Our direction of our program is great. But let's just go ahead and also admit there's not going to be a lot of buy-in from many of those down at Vaught Hemingway on Friday afternoon in terms of what is looking ahead. What's looking ahead? A bowl game that you did not think you would be playing in because if you thought you'd be in the college football playoff, simply after spending $10 million to find a way to fumble it at the 1 yard line. And it pains me to say it because if I was speaking so highly of Jackson Dart, picked him to win the Heisman Trophy at the start of the year, thought he at least belonged in the conversation to make it to New York City as the fourth representative, and all of that went out the window in a final 15 minutes down in the swamp. Congratulations, I guess, but still, let's end the season on a right note if you're Ole Miss. And if you are Mississippi State, the best thing that you could do just to rain on Lane Kiffin's parade and rain on the Rebels is be able to say, yeah, you really spent $10 million in NIL and transfer portal funds to lose to us in your backyard.
And to your point, Cole, again, a lot on the line for both sides. We're going to talk about motivation factor and kind of where these two teams sit. Two very different vibes, I think, coming into this football game, to your point, Cole. But again, a 2:30 kickoff on Friday, November the 29th, in case you missed that. Typically a game, Cole, played on Thanksgiving. As we know, there are no Thanksgiving games in the SEC in college football on that Thursday. So Friday it is, 2:30 in the afternoon on ABC there in Oxford, Mississippi at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Cole, Ole Miss is a 26-point favorite in this football game. The over-under is set at 61.5. Ole Miss leads the all-time series, 65-47-6. And, of course, last year's meeting, the last time these two teams met, Ole Miss won that football game by a final score of 17-7. Was kind of an interesting dynamic, Cole. Zach Arnett had been fired at that point, and I thought Mississippi State actually gave Ole Miss a pretty good game, all things considered. But either way, the latest chapter of this rivalry, Cole, I think it's fair to say this is one of the most underrated rivalries in the SEC. I think people that, aren't familiar with this game, haven't watched it, there's as much hatred, and the hatred is a nasty level of hatred between Ole Miss and Mississippi State. You talk to folks down there. Again, no love lost at all. I think one of the more underrated rivalry game showdowns we get on rivalry weekend. But you mentioned it, Cole, and I want to start there. And you can tell me if I'm fair or unfair to question this, because it feels crazy to question motivation levels going into a rivalry game where I just mentioned there's hatred on both sides and you hate the opponent on the other side. This is one of those games, Cole, it feels like if you can't get fired up for this game, you simply don't have a pulse. With that being said, Cole, it feels like Ole Miss's season ended last weekend. I don't know how else to put it. And when you think about it, it's not like it's a roster chock full of Mississippi kids that are and I know there's a lot of them on the roster, but a lot of these dudes, these portal guys, they don't have deep ingrained hatred to Mississippi State. I'm sure they've picked up on it as they've been in Oxford and they've been there. But I just, Cole, am I fair or unfair for questioning the motivation level in this game from the Ole Miss perspective? Because to your point, that Florida game, that Florida loss was about as deflating as it can get, because it feels like now at this point, again, who knows, craziness, chaos, it can still happen. I don't know if there's really realistically a path for Ole Miss to still make the college football play, but it just feels like at this point, everything that the Rebels were playing for is kind of out the window. And you got to find, like, how much pride do you have? That's my question, Cole. How much pride does Ole Miss really have? I think we're going to find that out on Friday afternoon.
The biggest thing is that I question everything with this. I don't think that you're entirely wrong, but let's also start off with the main point. How dare the SEC and college football take this off of Thanksgiving? It's an already egregious decision to begin there. So I'm already frustrated as hell that I don't get to enjoy my turkey, my sweet potatoes, my mashed potatoes while watching one of the most underappreciated rivalries nationally, not just in the SEC, but nationally on Thanksgiving night. So I don't have to watch the disappointing games that are on in the NFL. But instead, now you have to throw this into the mix. You're a near four touchdown favorite. All you had to do was handle business last week, and you would have been in the 12-team postseason picture. And Chris, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. You probably were the most dangerous team in the 12-team picture. You were, and you shot yourself in the foot. So I hope that Lane Kiffin, I hope that Charlie Wise Jr., I hope that Pete Golding, I hope the leaders in the locker room are as frustrated as I am in every single practice this week. And they wake up and they choose violence. And they wake up and they choose to deliver a performance to remember. Because it's not the fans' fault that you fumble the bag at the 1-yard line. It's not the fans' fault that you couldn't deliver against Kentucky. You couldn't deliver against Florida. You couldn't deliver in overtime against LSU. It's not the fans' fault that you spent millions of dollars to finish 9-3 in the regular season and pray for a miracle that chaos occurs over the next 2 weeks to where you don't fall so far in the college football playoff rankings and you get to come back in. But by golly, it's not their fans' fault, but the fans are still going to show up on Friday. They're still going to want to see a 4-quarter performance, and you have to deliver for them. You couldn't deliver them a national championship. You couldn't deliver them an opportunity to go to a 12-team playoff. You couldn't deliver them an SEC title in a year that this was made for you, in a year that you were building to this moment, in a year that will never be duplicated again with the last dance mantra BS, but you still owe them that. So I swear to God, if Ole Miss doesn't wake up, I swear to God, if Ole Miss doesn't show up, for the fans that have flooded into Oxford and believed that this season was meant for them, if they don't show up for them, don't bother showing up to the stadium.
And I think, Cole, honestly, your emotions and you echo a lot of how Ole Miss fans are feeling right now, to your point. I'm not saying like jobs are on the line or anything, but you'll lose any goodwill you have left if you don't show up ready to go and, again, take pride in this football game. On the flip side, Cole, I will say, though, if you're Mississippi State, and I know you just had a disappointing outcome against Missouri over the weekend, but, man, if you're Mississippi State, you got nothing to lose. I mean, You've got absolutely nothing to lose. I fully expect Jeff Lebby and company, and I think that matchup between Lebby and Pete Golding is going to be a really fun one. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Michael Van Buren. He's going to need help from that running game. Devon Booth, who averaged over 10 yards per carry a week ago against Missouri, he's going to need that help. But, I mean, I expect Jeff Lebby to throw the bag out there at Pete Golding. I mean, I would imagine this is the throw the kitchen sink game. Because
why not?
Even in a very disappointing year one, even though it was year one, I mean, you lost to freaking Toledo, right? Like, I mean, it's been a disappointing year. You go beat Ole Miss to close out the year, there's a pretty sweet feeling going into the offseason.
Vibes are good.
Vibes are good. A lot of sins can be forgiven if you're Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby, if you can go out there and do the unthinkable as a essentially 4-touchdown underdog and pull the upset. So I think Mississippi State's going to come out swinging. I think they're going to try to do some things that they haven't all year long. I think they're going to try to take some shots. And, obviously, again, specifically, Cole, on the offensive side, we'll get to defense in a second. You got to be able to hold your own against that front seven. But, I mean, I think we're going to see Jeff Lebby in his bag, some trickery, some different things happening on on Friday. So, you got nothing to lose if you're State. That's the bottom line here.
The only thing you have to lose is potentially an injury for the final 30 minutes and then go into the offseason and get surgery and fix it up and be ready for 2025. At the same time, I think Michael Van Buren is the only one facing a little bit of pressure because of the transfer portal is going to open up. And it may be an audition for him elsewhere. It may also be an opportunity to where Jeff Lebby says, I have to be willing to go out and add in a pure veteran, somebody that I think can run my offense a little bit better, that I know have a relationship with, maybe formerly recruited. But outside of that, What do you have to lose? This isn't a home game. You already played your last home game last week. You're not going to a bowl game this year. You're nowhere near bowl eligible, so it's not like a win and you're in for an Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And what would be a better gift for all of the state fans that have hated on me and hated on you and hated on everyone else to say, you guys are the biggest idiots that have ever existed, because if you thought they were going to boat race us and we marched into their turf with their laurels and their morale being at an all-time low and said, let's just drop a steaming pile of number 2 right on them just to even the odds. And again, you brought it up. The odds can be good, really good. All can be forgiven. A loss at Toledo and a win over a ranked Ole Miss team in their backyard just to guarantee no shot in hell. Because it's like a 4% shot, but like 0%, no questions asked, you are going to the playoff. And we knew what our expectations were this year. We knew what your expectations were this year. We kind of are doing better right now when we kind of are feeling ourselves a little bit more right now compared to where you are. It's possible. This is a game where if I am Jeff Lebby, I am throwing everything and anything out there. If I want to call a trick play that I was nervous about doing in week 3, what do I have to lose? Season's going to be over on Sunday morning. We're going to have to do a reevaluation and players are going to enter the portal. If I saw a defensive ball out cover 0 blitz that I want to run against this Ole Miss offensive line that I initially want to run against Missouri last week, what do I care? Season's over. It's not like things are going to be lost here. If I want Davin Booth throwing it 4 times a game, that way we say, hey, we can throw it with the running back and the quarterback. And if I want a tight end lined up at a fullback position or in a wildcat formation, what do I have to lose? It's the last game of the year. In the great words of Dan Fouts in the lovely movie The Waterboy, last game of the year, can't hold anything back. Neither one of these teams should hold anything back. Pent up aggression and anger from Ole Miss. But seriously, if you got that bag of tricks, Jeff Lebby, let it fly. Let it loose. Have some fun. Because let's call a spade a spade. You're going on vacation Monday morning anyways.
To your point, Cole, nothing to lose for Mississippi State, but I think the big question in regards to matchups in this game, we talked about Jeff Lebby against Pete Golding. The other side is where the biggest mismatch may be happening. And I know, again, we're being very critical of Lane Kiffin, deservedly so. I think you know, what happened against Florida and what's happened at times this season has been painfully on brand for Lane Kiffin, but you're giving me Lane Kiffin against Coleman Hutzler. I'm going Lane Kiffin every single time. That's my big question here for Mississippi State, because you know we try to, when we talk about all these games all season long, we're looking for paths to victory for both sides. It feels like it would just take Ole Miss imploding offensively, because I don't see State getting a lot of stops in this one, Cole. I think they're going to struggle defensively. You're going to have to get the worst version of Jackson Dart. You know, you're going to have to get bad play calling Lane Kiffin. I mean, we've seen it a couple times, but I just, the path to Mississippi State defensively holding Ole Miss in check, does it not feel really like a really, really narrow to nearly impossible path?
You said a second ago that Ole Miss has to implode for this to be a battle defensively for Coleman Hutzler, right?
Right.
Now they got to not show up. I mean, like, and I'm not even saying show up in terms of like, they don't have to show up.
The bus breaks down.
They literally have to cancel the game. That's the way. That's the way. Like they say, lightning delay until 7 a.m. the next morning. Yeah, well, it's a Saturday. Oh, well, now there's a tornado coming to town. Okay, well, now we're postponing it to another week. No. We're just going to say goodbye. This is just that's the way it doesn't show up. The backup should be able to beat up on this Mississippi State unit defensively. But also, what's it matter? I mean, the big thing is I want buy-in. You have to have buy-in. You have to show that you truly care. Because if it is a rivalry game, I don't care if you're from California or Utah or Oregon or New Mexico or New Jersey or Florida. You've heard of the Egg Bowl. Most of you have played in the Egg Bowl. In fact, I would say about a majority of you have played in the Egg Bowl because of last year, a majority of this roster came back. And if you didn't play in it, you watched it last Thanksgiving, whether it was prepping for a matchup against LSU down in College Station, Texas, or if it was prepping for a showdown against a team like Missouri in Fayetteville, or if it was going toe-to-toe with the Clemson out in Columbia, South Carolina. You saw this game. You know what this game is. You know what it is in the SEC. It's pride. It's pride to say that you're able to finish the season and finish the job that you started. I think that's really what it comes down to. And the reason why you can say this about Ole Miss's offense, not its defense, is because of its defense has time and time again bailed out its offense with the inconsistencies. The offense hasn't showed up in multiple moments. And it certainly was a reason why, as much as we can buy into Ole Miss being a dangerous team if they were to make the college football playoff, their offense is the reason why they're not going to the college football playoff. You may not want to hear it. You may think that I'm wrong. But when your quarterback throws 2 god-awful interceptions in the fourth quarter after basically single-handedly keeping the season alive on his own in a matchup against Kentucky and in a matchup against Florida, that's on you. That's on your offense. So do you want to be there? Do you want to show up? Do you want to look like a team that was invested? And when you can look back at the end of the day, you won't go to the playoff more than likely, but you can sure as hell say when we played like this, there was a reason why people bought into us. And we want them to buy into us one more time in 2024 in a rivalry game to where just to take out our pent-up aggression. It's like when the brother comes on home and he breaks up with his girlfriend and the little brother says, yeah, I can understand, pimple face. And then the other brother just starts wailing on him. Mom and dad have to get involved. They basically say that you're going to military school, shaving your head. Meanwhile, your brother has to get new teeth put in because of how bad you wailed on him. That's what I want to see from Ole Miss's offense. It's just they're acting like big brother, and pesky little brother said, pimple face loser got dumped by the pretty ball.
And again, Cole, I go back to your point, the whole pride aspect. You know, I mean, you think about some of the Rebels that this is going to be their last time at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, because I think, Cole, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a home playoff game is out of the picture for Ole Miss. I think
100% out of the picture.
Getting to the playoff is a super long shot. So a home playoff game, certainly more than likely out of the picture. So, I mean, you think about it, man, like this is Jackson Dart. It's the last time we're going to see him at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in an Ole Miss uniform.
Do you know how pissed off it is to have to go ahead and say Jackson Dart just surpassed Eli Manning for the most passing yards in school history? Just became one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever walk through Oxford. And it feels like it's all for nothing because of this game. He should still be celebrated. And I think that's also something that Ole Miss fans have to realize here. There are players who have been bought into this system for multiple seasons. Make sure that you give them their credit where credit's due. Because you're right. They need to show up for you last week. They need to show up for you against Kentucky. They need to show up for you against LSU. But the reason why you've had success over the last few years is because they were invested into what Lane Kiffin was preaching. It is a two-way street on Friday afternoon.
Cole, that being said, let's go ahead and lock in our predictions, our picks for this one. I will let you start the Egg Bowl. Again, I think one of the most underrated rivalries in the SEC and really all of college football. This one means a lot to both sides. We question motivation factor all we want, but again, the hatred will be flowing. Both these fan bases will be on edge for their own respective reasons. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, 2:30 kick there at Vaught-Hemingway. Who you got on Friday?
Look, motivation has to be at an all-time high. It does. I don't care that you're not going to the college football playoff, bearing a sheer miracle in this sport or pure, even more chaos than what we saw last weekend. I don't care that you guys spent millions of dollars in the portal and that you don't have a great overall feel of what the organization is because if you grew up watching USC or watching Tennessee or watching Arkansas or whatever program you were at before this. I don't care about any of that. This is the Egg Bowl. It's a rivalry in state. It is one in conference too, so it's a double whammy where there's other rivalries like Georgia Tech and Georgia that don't carry the same vicinity because if you don't add it to the conference record, I want you to also be willing to say this is a game that you have to show up for your fans, you have to show up for your family, and you have to show up for yourself. The hardest thing in life is that when we get down, we stay down. The hardest thing to actually do is not that. The hardest thing to do is to pick yourself back up. And you have to be able to pick yourself back up when you realize that what the goal that initially was met is no longer achievable. What is achievable is correcting the mistakes and ending things the way that you wanted to begin. With good vibes, with a solid win, with overall expectations feeling like that you have shown growth, maturity, and more importantly, tenacity when darkest times start to reach. And I think that that is what Ole Miss will do. As much as I would like to say that this is going to be a 4-quarter battle, and as wrong as I have been on Ole Miss this year, because I picked them to win the SEC, I picked them to go deep to the college football playoff. I had them in the semis. I have said that they're the most dangerous 2-loss team that nobody wants to face. I have said heinous things that have now come back to bite me in the ass. Me have egg on my face regarding the Rebels, regarding Lane Kiffin, regarding Jackson Dart. I don't think I'm wrong on this one. I think that you want to end your college tenure, end your season the way that you dreamed of. A last dance with a surefire victory, leave no doubt, against an in-state opponent. Jackson Dart gets 5 more touchdown passes. Lane Kiffin runs up the score. And as they all walk off the field, they say, damn it, we did this to ourselves. But at least we know how good of a team we actually are. I got a final score of 48-20. I mean, a final score of 48-14 in favor of Ole Miss.
You know, Cole, again, as I look at this game and at rivalry weekend, I think it's important to remember, again, the emotions of rivalries such as these. And it's why we say throw out the record books. You just never know what can happen. But I try to look at this. Mississippi State is a 26-point underdog. Like, what's the path to victory for Jeff Lebby and the Dogs? I think it's going to take things like turnovers. It might take a defensive score or two. Special teams has probably got to play a factor. You know, Devon Boots got to continue to run the ball at an elite clip. Michael Van Buren hitting some big plays down the field to, you know, Kelly Akari and his group of weapons. Even then, I think it's going to be a tall task for them. Like, I think so many things, so many stars would have to align here. And, oh, by the way, the game's at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. The game is in Oxford, Mississippi. So it doesn't feel like there's a lot of things. Like, if you're really trying to, like, oversell this one, is like, this is going to be, to your point, a fourth quarter battle and the upset could happen. I think that might be wishful thinking. I think that might be a long shot. But I will tell you this, Cole. 26 points is a lot. I mean, that's a lot, man. And listen, the best version of Ole Miss, I think, absolutely could beat Mississippi State by 26 points or more. I no doubt believe that. What I do find hard to believe, though, is that with this team's season essentially over, all of the goals and aspirations and dreams, the last dance, all that stuff is out the window. I just find it hard to believe right now I'm going to get the best version of Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to win, Cole. I'm not really questioning that. But if you're giving me 26 points, you're giving me nearly 4 touchdowns. And again, Vegas is also telling you they expect Ole Miss to score in bunches because the total's 61.5. I think it'll be there for the taking. But again, Cole, I do question the motivation factor in this game. I do question. I won't be surprised if Ole Miss gets off to somewhat of a slow start, just, you know, coming off of trying to bounce back from, you know, that disappointing game against Florida and like the feelings and the emotions right now, I think, in Oxford. You know, I think there's a lot of heartbreak. I think there's a lot of sorrow. I think there's a lot of, and you better be able to turn your attention because, again, this is college football. These rivalry games, you never know what will happen. Cole, Ole Miss will win the football game. I don't think it's going to be anything to write home about. I'm not saying it's going to be like a 4-quarter battle or anything. I don't know that the game will ever feel like it's truly in doubt, but I don't think Ole Miss is in a position to play their very best and be kind of the Ole Miss we thought they would be. I do think Jeff Lebby's going to try to throw the absolute kitchen sink out there. I still don't think it'll be enough, but I think it'll be a little bit more of a sloppy game. Ole Miss gets the win. Give me Rebels 37, Mississippi State 16. So I think it's still a comfortable win. What's the motivation for these guys? Like all these kids that are not Mississippi kids that were transfers that came in. They came in for a certain mission, certain goal, and now it's not going to happen. I don't think many of them came in with just the thoughts of, man, we can't wait to play Mississippi State at the end of the year. So I don't think going out there winning by 40 is necessarily going to be on the mind. Again, I think Ole Miss gets the win. It's a comfortable win, but I just think 26 points is too much, in my honest opinion. So I like Ole Miss to win the football game. I think the Rebels do take this Egg Bowl. And, you know, to your point, Cole, I think it's almost going to be even. And I'll tell you this, I think the more they win by, the more bittersweet this game's going to be. Because, like you mentioned, the clock is going to hit zeros, and you're going to say, had we just handled our business, we'd be going where we want to go. Now, you know, we are putting our fate in the hands of a committee or other teams messing up, and we controlled our destiny. We controlled our destiny, and we let it slip through our fingers. So I think almost no matter what, Cole, if that makes sense, it's going to be a frustrating day for Ole Miss on Friday. I think
100%.
no matter what. Yeah,
it has to be.
Yeah.
And it has to be because of it didn't have to be. I think it's the best way that you can put it.
Yep. You controlled your destiny and were not able to fulfill said destiny, if you will, at least what we thought you were capable of. So anyways, Egg Bowl, though, we both got Ole Miss getting the win. Guys, what do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? How do you see this one playing out Friday afternoon at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium when the Ole Miss Rebels and Mississippi State Bulldogs do battle? Guys, that's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.